Many talented entrepreneurs worldwide aspire to launch their businesses in New York, Silicon Valley, Austin, and other American IT hubs. This goal is quite understandable and perspective. Wonder why? Check out the reasons and how to start a business in the US now. Welcome back to Entrepreneurship 101. Today's we'll talk about how to incorporate your startup into the US. Before we start the video, please like, subscribe, and press the bell icon. Top jurisdiction. According to various rankings, the US is one of the most favorable startup jurisdictions. The US, specifically, avails itself of the following advantages. 1. Top 3 country for entrepreneurship, based on the best countries' entrepreneurship rankings. 2. Two of the most high-tech cities in the world, according to Business Insider. 3. The first 3 places in the list of the best cities in the world for tech, according to Savills. And 4. As per Startup Genome 7, it means 35% out of 20 best cities in the world for startups. No wonder the leading technology companies such as Apple, Google, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, Uber, Airbnb, et al. Are all incorporated in the US. Sure thing, each of these giants once was just a startup. From a legal perspective, check out the benefits of using the New York law. Incorporation reasons. Why would you incorporate your startup? Incorporation allows you to limit your liability, contribute property, including IP, to businesses, and gain corporate rights in the company. Incorporation essentially separates your business from you. To go further into detail, check out the reasons for your company registration in the U.S. States. Generally, the state to incorporate should be where the company will conduct its activities. If the company runs its business in various forms, it should typically get authorization in all those states. The most popular states for incorporation are Delaware, Nevada, and Wyoming. Notably, around 66% of all Fortune 500 companies are incorporated in Delaware. This is mainly because Delaware has a highly developed corporate law on significant corporate matters, particularly landmark court decisions. The Delaware law sets a high bar for shareholder suits. It thus mainly favors management. In contrast, the New York law largely favors shareholders. Interestingly, due to a recent poll conducted by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Delaware ceded its 15-year held top spot to South Dakota by the lawsuit climate in the states. Nevada and Wyoming, in turn, have no state income tax. Legal forms of business. American businesses usually take either of these 4 forms. Corporation, limited liability company, LLC, partnership, or sole proprietorship. Most practicable are the first 2. So, compare LLC and corporation. Corporations. Corporations can be of type C or S. C corporation is a regular corporation, while S corporation is a small one. S corporation is subject to the following limitations. Up to 100 shareholders. Only individuals as shareholders, and 1 class of stock. None of these limitations applies to C corporation though. Tax classifications. LLC and S corporations enjoy pass-through taxation. This means the income is taxable only at one level, members or shareholders. C corporation, in contrast, is subject to double tax. This means the payment is taxable to both groups, the corporation and its shareholders. Importantly, regardless of which state you choose to incorporate in, you will have to pay taxes in the state or states where you conduct your business. Owner privacy. By registering a company in the U.S., you may be able to keep your name and address private. In other words, you may keep the company owner or owners undisclosed in public records. For this purpose, you should use a third person as your company organizer and filer. This person may, for example, be an attorney who incorporates your startup. Constituent documents. Depending on its form, your company will have certain constituent documents. A corporation would have a certificate of incorporation, shareholders' agreement, and bylaws. An LLC would, in turn, have organization and operating agreement articles. Preparation of these documents, especially the agreements and bylaws, is the most crucial and time-consuming part of incorporation. The constituent documents should provide for, among other things, transfer of inventions, including those created in the future, non-competition, convocation of shareholders or members' meetings, meeting quorum, number of votes necessary to adopt a resolution, using supermajority, example 2-3 or 3-4 votes, for crucial matters, and amendment of constituent documents. Startup founders often overlook these essential provisions. Only after they run into legal trouble do they realize the significance of those provisions. Corporate freedom. The U.S. legal framework for corporate relations is very flexible. Corporate documents may fix any economic arrangement between shareholders or members, directors or managers, and the company. This especially relates to LLC. You may, for example, prescribe a disproportionate allocation of membership interests. Therefore, U.S. corporate law allows for creativity and an individual approach. Incorporation terms. Registration timeframes depend on the state and form. It is usually possible to incorporate a company even within a day. Preparation for that, however, requires time. It may, for example, take several days to draft relevant shareholders or operating agreements. Incorporation fees. Registration fees depend on the state and form too. For instance, a New York LLC registration fee amounts to $200, coupled with the publication certificate filing fee of $50. In comparison, a New York corporation registration fee amounts to $125. Virtual office. Would you like to run your American business without a physical presence in the U.S.? That's possible. Unlike many European jurisdictions, America has no substance requirement. So, you can have a virtual office in the U.S. This means you may have no real office space, employee, warehouse, or physical asset in America. A virtual office may furnish you with the following perks: postal address for business, receipt of correspondence, scanning correspondence, and emailing scanned documents to you. We can provide you with a virtual office on Wall Street in New York City. What can a business location be better? You can get this virtual office right now. Importantly, our virtual office works fine for U.S. business bank account purposes. Opening business bank account. Having incorporated your company and obtained a federal tax ID number (EIN), you can open your business bank account in the U.S. Importantly, you can open an American business bank account remotely, online. You might not have to visit an American bank or Uncle Sam. Once your account is open, remember to use your company accounts for business, rather than personal purposes. Otherwise, blending your personal and business funds may deprive you of the liability limitation. This is where the doctrine of piercing the corporate veil kicks in. Piercing corporate veil. With your startup incorporated, your liability is limited to your contribution. Is this limitation absolute? In some instances, courts may apply the doctrine of piercing the corporate veil. It renders the owner or owners personally liable for corporate obligations. You may, in particular, be personally responsible if you defraud or avoid your existing commitments, undercapitalize your company, or act as your company alter's ego. The latter scenario applies in the case of a severe lack of corporate formalities. You may, for example, be deemed an alter ego of your company if you commingle corporate funds with your funds, use corporate funds for your benefit, or do not hold meetings or consistently make decisions without meeting or voting. These actions may ultimately deprive you of the liability limitation. So, take care of your corporate formalities. Liability of directors. Directors generally bear no liability for the company's obligations. Moreover, the so-called business judgment rule protects directors from liability for failures of their business judgments. Courts typically refrain from second-guessing those judgments. At the same time, the directors bear fiduciary duties to the company. They, in particular, include a duty of care, duty of loyalty, and duty of good faith. Breach of any of these duties may subject the director to personal liability. A reliable option to protect directors from harm is using expert opinions as grounds for their business judgments. An example of such an opinion is a legal memorandum. Protection of IP. From the outset, protecting your intellectual property is your top priority. This especially relates to your patents, trademarks, copyrights, and domains. Also, if the founders contribute their IP to the startup, the company, instead founders, needs to own that IP. Once you incorporate your startup, be sure to register your trademark. American visas. As you establish your American business, you likely plan to move to the U.S. unless you already live there. As an alien, you need a relevant U.S. visa. The most common American visa options are B1, B2, H1B, L1, EB5, and E2. Depending on circumstances, the E2, U.S. Treaty Investor, visa appears most appropriate for several reasons. E2, namely, allows you as an investor and your family to live and work in the U.S. for as long as your business lasts. Is not subject to any visa quota, unlike H1B. Allows your spouse to work for any company in the U.S. It does not require investing as much as $500,000 or more, unlike EB5. Allows for an unlimited number of extensions of up to 2 years each, and is largely independent of external factors, compared with H-1B and L-1. Availing of these benefits, you can move to the U.S. as a treaty investor. Professional support. Can you incorporate it by yourself? You can, of course, register your company on your own. If you lack legal or accounting or tax expertise, however, you would be better off engaging a U.S. attorney and CPAs. Professionally crafted documents will make a massive difference for your business partners, investors, lenders, and acquirers. That's all for today. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment, like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more exciting content.